Howdy, everyone. Howdy from Houston. Got Houston right behind me, Space City. I'm JJ Gonzalez. I'm from the class of 2011. Back in college 10 years ago, I was class president. I was involved in the Chi Phi fraternity. I was in the student senate. And now, 10 years later, I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm a stand-up comic. I'm an athlete. I do weightlifting competitions. And I'm boring. I'm a lawyer. I own a law firm here in Houston. I have another office in Deep South Texas, and I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be awesome. Few housekeeping things we got. Program's being recorded. We're being recorded. If anyone's not comfortable with being recorded, just shut your video off. We're good. Mostly for marketing stuff. You have any questions? Submit them to the chat, and I'll do my best to scream them out to the mixologist. Also, this is an interactive thing. I mean, if y'all want to just shout stuff off, no need to mute your stuff. Just give a shout and we can ask your questions and have them answered. Also, don't mute. And next, I'd like to welcome all the classes. I tell you what, I hear the oldest class here is from 1956.
Wow.
1956. What else happened in 56? Elvis hit the charts and the interstate highway system started in 56. Not 1960 is here too. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy elected president in a narrow margin over Richard Nixon. 1961 is here. Yuri Gagarin becomes the first person in space. 1965 is here. LBJ's Great Society. 1966 is here. What was the most common slogan in 1966? Hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today? They would shout in front of the White House to LBJ. 1970, Beatles disbanded. 1971, here's two TV and radio ads for cigarettes. Cigarette ads are banned from TV and radio in the United States. 1975 is here. President Ford survives 2 assassination attempts. 1976 is here. A peanut farmer. Jimmy Carter elected president. 1980 is here. Reagan is elected. The Iran-Contra affair happens. 1981 is here. We got the Pope almost assassinated and Reagan almost assassinated. 1985 is here. The movie Back to the Future came out. 1986 is here. We saw the Challenger disaster live on television. 1990 is here, where the Gulf War starts. 1991 is here. The USSR is dissolved. 1995 is here. The top song in 1995, Gangster's Paradise by Coolio. 1996 is here. The top song is the Macarena. 2000 is here. We get a Texan elected president. And then we also have 2001, 2002, 2005, 2006, 2010. I got a bunch of friends in 2010. And my people in 2011, we got some 2015 here. We got some 2016 here. So I'm so excited for this. This is just awesome. I'd like to introduce to you now our mixologist, Canyon Shayer. You know, Canyon's from Philly, from Philadelphia. He's born and raised. He's from Philadelphia's city center, or Center City. Has more than 10 years of experience in the hospitality industry. I tell you what, he was growing up, and down the street, he got this proper pub. It was called Cherry Street Tavern. He recalls being fascinated by the relationship between bartenders, the bar, and the guests, you know, at a really young age, got him interested in the hospitality business. Now, as a portfolio brand ambassador for Samson and Surrey, he represents a family of 6 different distilleries based across the globe. He's so excited to make these cocktails for us, the University of Rochester. And thanks again for joining us. Over to Canyon.
Hey, everybody. So great to see everyone. It's lovely to have everybody together. Looks like we have 112. There we go. We have 112 people on this call. Thank you so much for joining. We're really excited to be here together. We had a little bit in Philadelphia. We had a bit of a venue change. Our roof upstairs had a little bit of a fall in. So I am in the distillery where we make Blue Coat Gin. Behind me is our rick house. We're aging gin and whiskey. I'm actually on the bottling line right now. But there's not really a better place to start making cocktails with each other. So very quickly, before we get into it, I want to just go over all of the components of the kits that we have. Again, if you have any questions, drop them right in the chat. And also, if you have any cocktail questions or spirit questions outside of this class, please drop a line to the host of this wonderful event. You know, if you're with me, happy to answer them as we go forth. We have really fun 2 cocktails to make. Also, additionally, just a quick note, anybody that didn't get their kit, we got a few returned kits, a few damaged kits. We're going to send all of that out as soon as we can. So pay close attention during this class and you'll be able to make a cocktail for yourself later. So we got 2 great cocktails. And actually, my friend JJ has a good story about the first one. The first one's called the Yellowjacket. So we're getting into that in just a second. The second one is the Meliora Manhattan. And then really quick, before I kick it back over to JJ for 1 second. If you're making the Yellowjacket, you got 2 jars that look like this. That's Blue Coat American Dry Gin. You have 1 jar that looks like this. This is a honey syrup. That's lavender vanilla honey that we made here in-house. And then if you're making the Manhattan, you've got 2 that look like this. And actually, the darker one is the whiskey, and the lighter one is sweet vermouth. So we're going to go over all the proper techniques. But before we get started making the first cocktail, the Yellowjacket, JJ's got a quick story about how we found that name. JJ.
Thank you, Canyon. Appreciate that. So, you know, fun fact, I love history. So if anyone who's a more mature class wants to tell me where they were when JFK was assassinated, please, we'll talk later. But interesting fact on how the Yellowjacket got his name. John Garnish from the class of 1961, I think he's on the call. He has an interesting connection to the Yellowjacket name. His late father, J. Howard Garnish, of the class of 1927, officially named the football team the Yellowjackets. A Buffalo player on Saturday called the varsity Yellowjackets, not because of their equipment, but rather their sting. So J. Howard Garnish reported this in the November 5th, 1926, The Campus, which is the precursor to the Campus Times, our university newspaper. And after that, the legend was just born. You know, the following week, Garnish christened the team officially, writing, "Go to it, you Yellowjackets," in the newspaper when he's talking about sports. So from there, we became the Yellowjackets. And that same weekend, we trounced Buffalo 32-0 and RPA 47-6. So did pretty well after that. So, you know, that's the story. And you know, now since talking about it, at that point in time, women and men had different newspapers. And it wasn't until the 1930s that they combined it into what we have now, the Campus Times. So really awesome history here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, JJ. Cocktails usually get their names from history, and whether or not we can remember the history just depends on how many cocktails we had that day. So we're really excited to make this cocktail for you. Yellowjacket couldn't be a better name for a bee's knees variation. So I wish we were all in the same room because I'd ask everyone if they had a bee's knees. I'm going to go a little quickly just because we want to make sure everyone can break out into their groups. But I'm going to go over a few tips and tricks. And again, if anyone has any questions after this, please let me know. I'm happy to go over everything one more time. But this is how we make one of these classic pre-prohibition cocktails at Bee's Knees right behind our bar in the tasting room here. So you've got your gin right here. You've got the lavender vanilla honey, which is just lavender vanilla bitters that we added to the honey in a big batch so that everyone can have it. So before you start, whenever you make a cocktail, you really have to understand you're only doing 3 things. You're changing the temperature of those ingredients, you're adding a texture, and you're diluting those ingredients by adding ice and water through shaking. Now, when we shake something versus stir something, the only difference is that second piece, is the texture. When you have shaken drinks, they're a bit more lively, they're a bit more effervescent, and they drink a little bit thinner. So they're kind of usually always have citrus in them, and that's a good indication of what you want to start with. So you should have gotten a lemon. If you didn't get one, hopefully you have one right now, because you always want to start whenever you're making a cocktail with the ingredient you're using the least of, or the least expensive ingredient. Now, for us, we're going to make this the way that it was made in the 1920s. We're going to take a lemon and squeeze it right into the shaker tin. Now, if you don't have a Boston shaker tin set like this, you might be using a pint glass and a tin or a cobbler shaker. You just want to get the tin that you're going to be adding your liquid ingredients to. And I'm going to do it just like you, as opposed to juicing it ahead of time, which you're more than welcome to do. I like to take this in the palm of my hand and squeeze it towards my palm. Move it one more time. We're going to use the juice of 1 whole lemon. Best part is you get some of the essential oils in there from squeezing the pith as well. So don't worry about the seeds. We're going to strain them out. One more time again, right towards you. And use your fingers towards your palm, squeezing that right in there. The juice of 1 lemon. Now again, cocktails really the best way to think about it, kind of the king of the modern cocktail, Dale DeGroff, he says that in some way, the sum of all of the parts is better than the individuals. That's all we're doing. We're just taking fresh lemon juice, honey, and gin, shaking it up in a great ratio that we like, and serving it. Now, one of two things we're going to harp on in this class. If you like this ratio of acidity to sweetness, that's fantastic. If you tend to like things a bit sweeter, you can bump down the lemon juice or bump up your sweetener. There's really no right answer. It all depends on what your preferences are. However, shaking this cocktail like this is going to fundamentally change the way your drinks taste. So I got the lemon juice in here. Now I'm going to add the gin. Whenever you're pouring something from a jigger or measuring device into the tin, you need to hold it straight up and down, and you want to hold it close to the thing you're pouring into. Sometimes we pour from up here to make sure we're getting the right measure, and then you got to get all the way from here to there. So you don't want to do that. You just want to pour right next to it. 3/4 of an ounce of lavender vanilla honey going in the tin. So usually there's about 3/4 of an ounce to an ounce of fresh juice in a lemon. So we're kind of matching the acidity to the sweetness with equal parts. Now, I'm a bit of an OCD person behind the bar. I like to make sure that every drop of that 3/4 ounces is in there. So if you have a measuring device like this, this is the 1 ounce side for me. This is 2 ounces. We're going to use 2 ounces of Blue Coat American Dry Gin, but I'm going to use the 1 ounce side twice because I like to wash out those ingredients in the jigger. So hold it straight up and down, and you want to pour till it's flush. You don't want it to bubble over. So just like that. You want it to be flat because the surface tension of whatever you're pouring can mean that you're going over by 1/4 to 1/2 ounce. So when you're working with aggressive ingredients, it's important. When you're working with gin, it doesn't really matter if you have a little bit more. So 2nd ounce in the bin. Now, this is the main point that I want everyone to remember leaving this class. You got your cocktail built. We're ready to go. Bartenders like to be dramatic sometimes. We call this point the point of no return because we're going to start shaking this and pouring it. As soon as we're finished shaking, we have to get it out of the tin because what we're doing, we're creating a texture, we're diluting, and we're combining all these ingredients to make something that's better than these individuals. So if you leave those little tiny ice shards floating around in there, it's going to change the dilution and the texture. So I need to get ready to pour this thing before I start shaking. So I'm going to grab my glass. This is served in a martini glass, nice and chilled. And for the garnish, you can use a lemon twist. You can use a nice little candied piece of honeycomb, whatever you'd like. The lemon twist is really going to accentuate the freshness. Totally up to you. I'm going to show you how to shake this thing. So I have my glass. I got my Hawthorne strainer. We're going to ready to go. I'm going to put the ice in the big tin. 1 second here. And you really want to fill the shaker tin the entire way. Now, if anyone has trouble separating these tins, I did when I was first started learning how to bartend. I'm going to teach you the easiest way to do it. But the shake is the most important thing. We're going to start slow, just moving back and forth. That's going to create the temperature. That's only going to get it cold. Then we're going to round the shake out, and that's going to start to shave the corners off of those ice cubes, slowly picking up the pace the entire time, finally beating it up. We're going to pour it right away, and it's going to be super frothy and delicious. So let's start. You always want to combine the tins on an angle. That's going to create the best seal. So starting nice and slow, we're going to go back and forth. Just getting the cocktail cold. Just like that. Now I'm going to slowly pick up the pace. And then pick up the pace even more. And stop. Separate it just like so. Strainer goes right on. And I'm pouring. And you want it to be frothy. You want it to be effervescent. This is a fantastic bee's knees variation called the Yellowjacket. It's going to serve us well, just like the team name did. Put that right over there. Again, you can use a lemon twist. You use a little piece of candied honeycomb, whatever you'd like for the garnish. These are for the people that have the Yellowjacket kit. And we'd love to do a cheers if everybody can do a cheers. And don't worry, I'm going to explain everything in the chat. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. Let's try this thing.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
That is delicious.
Beautiful. Cheers. Cheers.
So just because for the interest of time, I want to make sure that everybody can answer some questions and also everyone gets a cocktail in front of them. So I'm going to start making the next cocktail. The only difference is that we're stirring this one. A little bit different vessel. So the only difference is going to affect the texture. You'll notice there's no citrus in this one. This is going to be the Meliora Manhattan. So we have vermouth and we have whiskey. And you guys have 2 whiskeys. I just need one for the one cocktail. Just going to make sure that, yep, that's the vermouth. Good. And yep, we're good to go. So now, again, whenever you make a drink, you are just diluting those ingredients, chilling them, changing the temperature, and you're also creating a texture. This texture of stirred cocktails is going to be silkier, more decadent, and you can drink them for a longer period of time. So I'm going to show you the best technique in order to make any stirred cocktail. But what you need to do is always start with the ingredient you're using the least of, or the least expensive ingredient, because if you mess up, you can just shoot it or whack it back or throw it away. So starting right away, we're going to start with the vermouth. Now, classic Manhattan, we're going to do 2 to 1. So 1 ounce of vermouth. So I'm going to put my jigger measuring device close to the mixing glass. Pour and right in. Now, if you have bitters at home and you like to make little variations, or make cocktails at home, please add 2 dashes of your favorite bitters. Classically, this would be Angostura, and you have some Angostura bitters in there as well. So now, again, I'm going to use the same side of the measuring device 2 times, following that with few American whiskey. Once and again. So these glasses hold a little bit more than 2 ounces. So you have like just a little nip there for yourself at the end, which is totally fine. Okay, so now we're at the point of no return again to get dramatic, meaning the cocktail is built. We're ready to go. We got to get ready to pour this thing. So grabbing my glass, and I'm going to fill it with ice. Here's a really fun experiment. We're just doing 3 things. We're adding dilution, chilling everything, and creating a texture. So I'm going to put ice in here, and you're going to see how much water accrues in that glass before we pour this cocktail. So I'm going to grab some ice, throw it right in the glass. And again, remember, if you have any questions after this, please just let me know. So got my ice right here. Now, can everyone do this that's watching? Live long and prosper. Awesome. That's what we're going to do when we stir this cocktail. If you have a stirring spoon, fantastic. If you don't have one, a chopstick or a long iced teaspoon really works well as well. If you have a spoon, you want to keep the back of the spoon on the inside of the glass. And I'll explain why in just a sec. So I'm going to put the spoon in there and I'm going to start adding ice. Now, you want to add more ice than the total volume in there, because you can think about making cocktails just like making a dish in the kitchen. You always want it to be making itself. You would never start a steak and then right before you get to the temperature you want, take it off, unless you're serving for tons and tons of people. So same exact idea happens here. So I'm going to get my ice in there. Now, I'm going to take my hand, my live long and prosper, put it in between these 2 middle fingers, and I'm going to keep the back of the spoon on the inside of the glass. So all the way down. And then really the reason that I like to say this is because you're going to take the top 2 fingers closest to you, and you're going to pull the spoon towards you. And with these back 2, you're going to push the spoon away from you. And as you go, that's going to make a circle. And that's going to stir nice and smooth and slow. Now, here is the most important part. When you're making stirred cocktails, you have to gauge the balance of how diluted it's getting versus how chilled those ingredients are getting. The only way to know is tasting. So it's a terrible job, but somebody's got to do it. So we got to taste. Now, when you start making drinks for yourself, you're not going to know how you like a drink served unless you know how it starts. So when you right here, take a little sip, either off your spoon. I'm going to dab some on my hand there, and just give it a taste. Now, you should be able to taste the whiskey and the vermouth. What we're doing is, as we stir this cocktail, we're creating that new flavor. We're creating the sum of those parts, and that is the cocktail. Now, that preference of how balanced it is of those 2 flavors, how chilled, how diluted, is all up to you. So you just got to stir and taste. So I got plenty of ice in there. That's going to control the temperature. I keep going. Now you'll notice you're not really hearing that ice kind of jangle around. You want to exclude all the aeration that we put into the first cocktail, all that movement we don't want. We just want this to get cold and soaky. So I'm going to taste it again. We're almost there for me. Now, one quick note. You'll notice that now we're going back out to bars again. Bartenders really love to look really cool. So whenever they're pouring cocktails, a lot of bartenders like to pour from really high up. That is totally fine when you're making a shaken cocktail because you're aerating that drink. When you pour a stirred cocktail, we always find that it helps to pour it nice and low and slow because if you pour it from high up, you're aerating that drink at the last second. So the texture that you created, that silkiness, that more decadent texture is gone. So whenever you're pouring a stirred cocktail, nice and low and slow, I'm almost ready to pour this, but I just want to show you from not touching this, all of that added dilution was in there. We don't want that. So now I'm going to pour, I'm going to go straight on. I'm going to take my julep strainer, go nice and low right over these ice cubes, and it should kind of look silky. It should kind of look like the honey coming out of that bottle. Nice and low, no air bubbles whatsoever. Beautiful. Now for the garnish, you could use an orange twist, a lemon twist, a cherry. There's tons of options, but the components of this drink are fantastic. And really quickly before we cheers, just want to let you know, this is actually the 10-year anniversary of our whiskey company, Few. They're out of Evanston, Illinois. And right before this, they're actually celebrating at the distillery right now, and they're drinking in Manhattan. They're serving in Manhattan. So it's really fun that we get to cheers with them and everybody here too. So if everyone's ready, let's take our glasses up to our virtual screen and cheers. Cheers.
Cheers, Meliora.
Cheers.
Meliora.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Oh my
This
God.
is great. Thank you.
Canyon, I think there was a question. Somebody wanted to know, how do we make or where can we get the honey syrup for drinks in the future?
That's a great question. So the honey syrup is really just raw honey that we blend with a little bit of water. And the only reason we put water into it is because it makes it a little less viscous, easier to use, easier to pour, but you're not really missing any of the honey flavor. So we use a really heavy honey syrup here. It's 4 parts honey to 1 part water. By weight or really by volume. It's kind of similar in this instance. So if you just take a little bit of boiling water and add it into your honey, you can then add, if you'd like, lavender bitters, vanilla bitters, Angostura, really anything. But if you just want to make the honey syrup, it's really easy. It's a fantastic sweetener. You can make old fashions, Yellowjackets, anything with ginger and honey is really lovely together. So it helps to have that in the cabinet because it's a little easier to use.
Does the shape and size of the ice make any difference for either of these drinks?
That is a fantastic question. So let me show you. We're pretty lucky here at Philadelphia Distilling. We have these 1x1 cubes. These two are stuck together, obviously. But these are really consistent and they're great because you can control how fast, especially when you're stirring, how fast something is diluting versus how chilled it's getting. When you shake a cocktail, the best thing to shake a cocktail on are those 2x2 silicone or the 2x2 molds that you can buy anywhere. They make a 2x2 ice cube. And if you shake on just one of those in the way that I showed you, it'll create the most fluffy, effervescent cocktails that you've ever had because that ice cube is going to help emulsify everything. So shaking, use 1 big cube. Stirring, you can use a mixture of cubes, but make sure they're pretty big because it's going to give you more control. Best way to think about it is like using a big cast iron pan versus using a saute pan. The saute pan is going to get cold as soon as you add anything to it. The cast iron is going to hold that temperature and make it easier for you to get the desired texture that you want.
Great.
What do we think? Do we like these? I saw a couple comments like, yeah, these are great, or the Yellowjacket might have been a little
Yeah.
small.
No, love it.
Great.
Great.
Love it. This is
Very
great.
good.
And like I said, everybody, I know that we're a little pressed for time. Everyone's going to break out into their separate rooms. But the lovely hosts have my information. If you have any questions about making big batch cocktails, making these cocktails, anything about spirits, please let me know.
So this has been way too much fun. Way too much fun. In fact, I've already had to change. It's getting way too hot. I'm wearing my Rochester shirt, my Rochester tank top. But this has been so fantastic coming to you live from downtown Houston, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Jana and Tim and, all of the other tech people who are helping us today. This has been awesome. And everyone who helped out with getting all the stuff mailed to you. It's kind of a big task, and it's really awesome how this all went down. And I'm just so happy to be a part of it. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope we have even more fun in June 2022 when we're all together. So ever better, every day, Meliora, and we can raise our glasses. Anyone still has stuff? One more time,
Mine's empty.
Meliora. Mine's about to be. I tell you what, mine's about to be. But it was so much fun catching up with my classmates in 2011. Yeah, have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. What a treat. We'll see y'all
you.
later.
I'd like to give you
Thank
applause.
you.
Well
Bye.
done. Thank you very
Bye,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.